Recently, there have been clips of this art club as a problem that have been uploaded to YouTube, and I just gotta say, I watched this shit before it was cool. I had watched this anime while it was airing in the summer of 2016, and it was my first seasonal anime. The show wasn't very popular at this time. It gradually picked up afterwards, which is rare since most anime get swamped by whatever isekai shit airs in the next season. I had found the series on Crunchyroll thinking it would be a bad anime that I could make fun of. It was just that for the couple of episodes that were out at the time, and I had a good time ripping on it. However, when I read the manga while waiting for the next episode, I had realized how much better it was. So what happened when translating the manga to anime? Well, we are going to be looking through this anime and some manga chapters today, see what has changed, what worked in each version, and we'll have fun doing it. The manga doesn't have anywhere near as much exposure as the anime, so I would love to show it to you. Here are a couple bits of information before we begin. The Japanese name is Konobi Jutsubu ni wa Manda ga Aru, so we'll be referring to it as Konobi for short. The manga is written and drawn by Migi and has been published in Dengeki Mao since 2012. No official translation for the manga exists as of now, and I'd rather not pay $30 for shipping, so I don't have a physical copy. But I have this. It's in French. I don't know French. Why did I buy this? Oh, and another thing. I'm not going to go through each episode and point out the differences in each scene. I've been doing scene-by-scene videos for a while now, so I'm going to practice some restraint here. I don't want to be here all day as much as you don't. If you're interested in something like that, I made this table as a reference because this video would be a fucking nightmare to make without it. Keep in mind that not all the points hold the same weight, and some of them are nitpicks and dumb comments. Without wasting more time, let's get into it. Episode 1 starts and we Alright, I guess we're talking about character designs. The original manga had mostly natural colors, mostly blues and browns. Only a couple of characters were an exception. The anime gave Usami olive eyes instead of brown, which is nice, adding a bit of color is always welcome, but they added way the fuck too much. Almost every character has gradients in their hair that look like shit. The colors they use don't really blend well together. The inoffensive ones are Imari's hair that fades from dark pink to red, and Kaori whose hair goes from light pink to slightly darker pink. Uchamaki's hair going from blonde to light orange at least isn't horrid, but the others are just baffling. Colette's hair goes from fucking blonde to green, and Usami's hair goes from dark brown to magenta like she wants to see the manager. These gradients really clash with the mostly natural color palette that the show uses, and it looks terrible. It would have been less taxing on the coloring people if you didn't do this either. These may seem like relatively minor things, but you have to consider that you have to look at these characters all the time, and these thoughts will eventually worm their way into your brain and light it on fire. Another thing that pissed me off was when they adapted chapter 33 in episode 11. The characters need cans for an art project, so Usami and Imari sell drinks at the school and they wear these diner uniforms. They were nice in the manga, but guess what color they decided to make them in the anime? Brown! They chose brown. This is the worst color they could have possibly chosen. You would think that in their colorful, cutesy anime that they would have chosen something that reflected that style, but I guess someone was having a shitty day. I know I was just talking about having too much color, but you have to agree that this is an awful choice. Imiguru's designs have very circular heads, and the facial features are concentrated. These designs are made in a way that is very appealing. We typically gravitate to more circular shapes, and the faces resemble a baby's, which we also gravitate to. Yeah, I took a design class once. Plus the fact that people really like big hair, and we have a good art style that stands out a bit. Okay, so how is the anime different? The heads are more square and the facial features are a bit more spread out. It loses out on those appealing features and it just looks more generic. The best example of this is Moeka, the little 4-year-old. She has a really round jaw. In the anime, she just looks like every other character. I think this is because of Mai Otsuka, since all the shows that she did the character designs for look the fucking same. It just makes the anime feel manufactured. We may as well talk about the other visual aspects while we're at it. The animation is pretty lackluster, but there are a couple of random good animation cuts in episodes 1, 7, and 12 that caught me off guard from how out of place they were. Sure, good animation is good animation, and I should be praising it for at least having some, but did you really need to make this animation of Usami standing up this detailed? There are other moments that could have used animation like this, such as this scene where Amari jumps and it's all dramatic. Where are your priorities? The rest is just like every other slice of life anime, just characters standing around and talking. At least in the manga, there are a bunch of art style changes which were very cute and dynamic. These are my favorite parts to look at since they were just so darn cute. The anime just feels so static in comparison, which is ironic for animation. Also, these visual effects just look kind of terrible. There are many evening scenes in this anime, and they just love to use this filter and lens flares. They didn't really do a good job of blending the lens flares into the environment, so it just kind of looks like it's on top of the animation. Some other effects include this smoke, dust, and here's a Windows screensaver. Do you see what I mean when I say that these effects are kind of crappy? God, shut up! I thought this was supposed to be a slice of life anime, not an episode of Scared Straight.
Next time it ain't gonna be a it's gonna be skin flavored.
You know what makes it obvious that it is a fake show? No one says the N-word. There's a bunch of angry black guys in prison and no one drops it.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Slam!
Hell, not even 13-year-old Johnny says it here to be cool. I think they were trying to be considerate to the editors. Usami's voice sucks. For the most part, she sounds fine, but she squeals in every episode and it just irritates me. And for some reason, the anime people thought it was a good idea to add more of these scenes. At least in the manga, there's less of it and I don't have to hear it. Colette doesn't sound great either. She sounds like an infant! Keep in mind that she is only a year younger than the other kids, so I don't understand why she sounds so much oh. She's supposed to be the cutesy one. I don't understand this at all since she's the comic relief character and I find her more annoying than cute. It's typical for anime to make characters sound unnecessarily cute, and it's something I've had qualms about before and there is no exception here. Another thing is the music. I'm kind of an idiot when it comes to music, but I'll try my best here. I like the OP and DD, they are fun and catchy tracks. Other songs are okay, but some of the tracks are a little too dramatic. It's just Uchimaki, not a little boy. A lot of these songs have a bunch of electronic noises. This should be fine, however, it feels a bit out of place in some of them. There's this one scene where it is all dramatic because Uchimaki might leave the art club. I'm supposed to be on edge since it might spell the end of their relationship, but then the music goes from this beautiful track with pianos and violins to a fucking Minecraft song. I cannot take this seriously. There are more tracks like this as well, and I wish that they kept this stuff out of those songs because it's distracting and they would be fine without them. Shit, I almost forgot about the music video. This has less to do with the music because the music isn't terrible and more to do with how out of place it is. During the pool segment, there is a montage of the characters painting in the pool, and that was it in the manga. In the anime, there is this upbeat song and the characters are doing this choreographed movement. It feels so random since I didn't think that this was a flashy manga chapter, and the fantastical fish part was weird because Konobi isn't really a series that does stuff like this. Despite this segment only being a minute long, it feels like a fucking eternity. Alright, we're done with the audiovisual stuff. I wanted to get that out of the way since although it is important, it is not as important as the next part. The real differences that truly break the anime for me is how they handled adapting the story and the characters. The character that got shafted the hardest is President, and this is a major reason of why I'm making this video. In the manga, it is immediately apparent that he is a very kind character. From the first chapter, there is a panel in the manga that is missing from the anime. After he gets kicked out of the club room for snapping a pic of them panties, he says, "Better leave those two kids alone," implying that he wanted Usami to have an intimate moment with Uchimaki since they already established that she was in love with him. He was looking out for her, and it's a consistent part of his character throughout the manga. The parts where President tries to tell Uchimaki about Usami's feelings make sense since he is trying to help her achieve her goals, which is to get Uchimaki's dick wet. In the anime, the context completely changes. It seems like he's just trying to pick a fight with her and lose every time. Hell, chapter 37 was a thing. It wasn't animated even though chapter 38 was, so they definitely had time to consider it, and it sucks that they decided not to because it's a great chapter. It gave us some backstory showing that he has a big heart under his sleepy personality. His kindness is the reason that he sleeps so much. The only part from the anime that really confirms this nature is the segment where he finds Moeka, which is in episode 10. This whole personality trait wasn't clear all because this one panel was not in the anime. For most of the show, he was just a lazy perv with no real redeeming qualities, but in the manga, he at least had this one trait going for him. It wouldn't even have been hard to add this. You could have just used a static shot to portray this with a voiceover. It seems that the people who had adapted this manga seriously didn't pay attention to it to see what made it good, which causes this big butterfly effect as you can see here. Which is a shame because glossing over this one panel turned one of my favorite characters into one I can't stand. Speaking of characters, they definitely did a ton of pandering with them. They add plenty of shots in the anime to show off the females. It's especially prominent with Tachibana. She had a very small role in the art competition and pool segments, but they shoehorn plenty of half-naked shots of her big titties even though it breaks the flow of those segments. They also account for the girls on the smaller side as well. There's this shot where Colette is tied up, very kinky, and this one where this guy imagines Usami in her underwear. This doesn't even make sense since I'm sure his brain just shut off when she complimented him. Like, dude, she isn't even attractive to you since she isn't Chinese. In fact, a lot of these don't make sense at all. In episode 11, it's shown that Colette hands out flyers and then magically changes into one of those ugly ass costumes. She didn't need it to hand out flyers, and she doesn't do any of the drink selling, so why did she change? She doesn't change in the manga because Imigimuru was consistent with what Colette was doing. The anime people only did this because they thought it would be cute for Colette to be in the outfit, which is a really fucking shallow reason. In the first episode, there's a bit where President snaps a pic of Usami's undies and they do a close-up of the photo, while in the manga, it is from much farther away, but you can still see the evidence. I hate how apparent it is that they just did this to see a 14-year-old's crotch. I probably have more examples, so check the table because it'll take forever if I explained every single one. I'm not shitting on this because I hate fan service. One of my favorite animes features a scene where a 13-year-old girl swallows a giant invisible snake and it was really hot. I mostly have a problem with how this show does it. The manga, on the other hand, is better at getting your blood piston going. The characters' clothes cling to their bodies like they forgot to bring their umbrella. You can see every little detail and curve on the female characters, especially with Tachibana. I like this because horny people who seek it are satisfied with it, but if you're a celibate weirdo like me, you don't have to pay attention to it. You just continue without having to analyze Usami's boob curve. Dengeki Mao is a monthly magazine, so Imigimuru has a lot of time to draw these erotic details, and I'd say it looks great. Unfortunately, the anime's character art is nowhere near as detailed. How am I supposed to watch the pool episode without Colette's bulge? I get that the anime has an average budget and they didn't have enough time to put these details in, but the way they compensated for it is just annoying. In every scene that is even slightly sexual, they do this zoom and pan over whichever character's body. I hate how intrusive it is. It feels like the show is trying to force me to feel aroused, and I don't really buy it. Let me fap on my own accord, alright? I'm a big boy. I know how to search up sex on YouTube. What even is the point of this anyway? Some of these pans are quick, so you don't really get time to appreciate the detail, or rather lack of it, and the zoom doesn't really help much either. Another thing that was heavily affected for the worse is the comedy. Chapter 16 is the best example of this, and it sucks because this is a really good chapter. This chapter starts with Uchimaki talking about a drawing of a 10-year-old with a little too much passion. The characters then discuss the errors in Uchimaki's logic and compile evidence that shows that he is a lolicon. It gets to a point where even he is convinced that he might be one. President hatches a plan to help Uchimaki prove that he doesn't belong on the sex offender registry by putting him on the sidewalk while a bunch of elementary school girls are walking home. Uchimaki on the phone then comments that something is cute, and President and Usami sees that he is looking at one of the girls. There are a few panels of their hilarious reactions before Uchimaki tells him that he was looking at her strap. This chapter is fun because there is a long build-up and a great payoff. I love how well it convinces the reader that he might be a Smash Ultimate player, which gives the cute comment much more of a shock before the dramatic irony settles in from the punchline. Now let's see what they did in episode 2. Chapter 6 is adapted, which is the one where they find Colette for the first time and help Moeka find her mom. This is important. The next segment is where Uchimaki turns down his underclassmen. Later on, Usami and Uchimaki are walking home when Uchimaki comments that something is cute. Usami sees that he is looking at a little girl and she flashes back to a conversation she had with President about the possibility of Uchimaki being a pedo. Just when it sinks in that he really is a kid diddler, it is revealed that he was looking at the girl's strap. We then learn that the little girl is the sister of the underclassman and they imply that she may be a reoccurring character. Turns out she only appears in 2 shots in the 11th episode with no dialogue, so what even was the point? Neither of them are relevant ever again. While I commend the writers for trying to get the joke to work in this context, it really doesn't. The setup isn't as effective because they had already established that segments of the show don't really build upon the previous one, so it doesn't even register that Uchimaki could possibly be a pedophile when he helped Moeka. The manga was natural in the way it started with Colette questioning why he was drawing little girls if his drawings are his brides. It follows a logical line that leads to proving his innocence. Since the anime was unclear about their setup, they had to shoehorn this scene of President telling Usami about Uchimaki's tendencies. At least in the manga, the evidence came straight from Uchimaki, which is much more convincing. The delivery of the punchline was squandered as well. Her brief disappointment isn't nearly as good as the multiple panels of utter shock while the dramatic irony sinks in. Sorry about spending so much time on this stupid joke, but this is arguably the best comedic chapter of the manga, and it sucks to see it in such a worse state. There are other changes to the comedy that causes it to be less funny as well. The delivery of the dialogue isn't the best, and the visual gags aren't as well done because of the lack of art style changes. There are other slight changes, but my thoughts on them are subjective, and I don't want to keep you here all day explaining all of them. However, some of the anime original jokes are pretty good. There's this one where Uchimaki gets distracted by a manga even though their teacher passed out. That's great. I like this visual gag where the characters imagine Colette's parents in a different art style. There's also this one. This is so fucking stupid, but I can't help but have a big dumb smile on my face whenever I watch this bit. Kaori is also great. All of her anime original scenes are funny, her voice actress's delivery is better than the other characters, and the yo-yo gags made me laugh more than I should have. If she replaced Colette as the comic relief character, I would like the series as a whole much more. The romance gets a pretty big hit as well. Chapters 18 and 19 are about an art competition. Usami and Uchimaki work on this project together and really bond over it. It's the strongest their relationship has been up to that point. I really like this development, but there is a threat when Imari is introduced in chapter 20. There is some dramatic tension there, since you don't know if the relationship is going to grow apart because of her. The manga structures it in the opposite way. Imari is introduced in episode 6 before the art competition in episode 7. Sure, the tension is there, but less so since the peak isn't. There are other more subtle differences for the worse. In the anime, the characters have very robotic body language and their faces have little expression, which makes it less believable that the characters have any chemistry. In the manga, the characters are very expressive, they smile and look at each other, and it's really cute to see that Usami and Uchimaki are really good friends at the very least. An example of this is in episode 6. Uchimaki blushes a little bit in the manga when talking to Imari and seems more receptive to her comments of them becoming a couple. You can perceive this as him genuinely considering this, or perhaps him feeling awkward about what this would mean for his and Usami's relationship. There are moments like this riddled throughout the manga, and they make me smile every time. There's another interesting bit in the same episode where Uchimaki doesn't get 3D girls in the anime, rather than get the beauty of 3D girls in the manga. The phrasing is important because its attraction towards real girls has been none up to this point, but he mentions beauty, which is interesting. You can infer that he is slowly falling for Usami, which is some nice character development. The anime saying that he just flat out doesn't get 3D girls makes it seem like he hasn't changed at all, and it feels like everything you've seen up to this point hasn't achieved anything. However, there is a moment where I think the anime did the romance better. In episode 3, there's this segment where Usami goes to the store, but it's just Usami, and there's relaxing music. At the art club the next day, she gives Uchimaki a book and he's glad because there are hairstyles for his artwork. It's concise and heartwarming, a really good segment of the show. It's weird because the manga does what the anime would have done. That version is accompanied by Colette and Uchimaki with loud humor, and that part of the chapter just feels like padding. The anime does this all the time. For example, in episode 12, they add a couple segments with Colette and Kaori which make the episode feel longer than it should be. I find it odd that for a single instance, they understood what makes the manga good, and changed things for the better for consistency. I don't know why they kept making decisions for the worse, which is a shame because this is what the adaptation could have been. That's all I really have to say, and boy howdy was it a lot. This is the first series I could thoroughly compare the anime and the manga to, and it was really fun. It's crazy how a few small changes, and big, can change so much, if for better or for worse. Well, at least the manga exists. Only 34 out of the 88 chapters that have been published as of the time of writing have been adapted, so there's a large portion of the manga I haven't covered, and it's a great time. There's a bunch of fun scenarios and some cute romantic moments as well. Unfortunately, no real romantic development has happened since, but it's still pretty good. I care about this manga a lot. Alright Usami, now's your chance. Kiss him. He's passed out, no one's gonna know. No one's gonna care anyway cause you're a woman and you'll get away with it. Come on, you got this. Make up for that indirect kiss scene. I believe in you. Yes? Yes? Come on, I've been waiting 4 years for this? What? God! Maybe a little too much, which is probably a product of how much time I spent with it, and it's the reason why I've made this video. So that's a bad adaptation. So what does a good one look like? Well, I have just the anime in mind.